Hey everyone, today I want to share with you guys why I got into commercial photography and honestly why it was such an important decision for me to make all those years ago. You see, being a photographer, one of the most difficult things to do is find your next client, and doing this switch into commercial is what allowed me to honestly be a full-time, stable photographer. So let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Sergio and I'm a commercial photographer here in Victoria, BC, and it wasn't always like that. Like I just said, I used to shoot a lot of portraits. Honestly, I would just shoot everything that came my way, and I never had any problems with that. I was just like, the more I can offer, the more clients I can have, the easier it is for me to book new people. Why would you ever want to say no to a client or to people who are willing to pay you to do something that you enjoy doing? Of course, you're just going to say yes, and you're just going to keep going towards whatever other new client, new $150, new $200 here, $300 there. And you just kind of keep going that way. But I was still very early on in my career, and I want to share with you guys a little bit of a story of how this switch happened for me and why I think it was so beneficial. So see, I had already been shooting for at least 8 or so years by now, and I felt honestly pretty good about my photography. I felt good about what I knew and how I was lighting rooms and how I was able to just create these ethereal or just not what you see in real life, but in a camera. So I was able to create these scenes that weren't actually there, to create these very extraordinary situations out of very ordinary locations. And that was great. I was very proud of my ability technically to create things that I was creating. Of course, now looking back at it, I'm cringing at many of the mistakes I was making, but still, in the moment, I felt good about it, and I felt like I was just, on the right path towards being a fuller time photographer. I was shooting portraits at the time, and it was very much a game of trying to convince people that they need a new headshot or that they need a new portrait to update their website or their portfolio or whatever it is that they were trying to do. I shot many different things, from corporate headshots to like OF models and everything in between. And it was just a way for me to keep having a camera in my hands, and all I cared about was the next shoot. It was never about the pictures or the interaction with the person. It was always just about, all right, I'm a photographer now, and I can keep being, if I get paid X amount of dollars, well, that's going to give me another 2 weeks or maybe 2 months, because I was living at my parents' house at the time. And that would just allow me to live for a little bit longer and just be a photographer. Just be like, oh, all I do is take pictures, and all I'm thinking about is taking pictures, and that's what allows me to get better as a photographer. Things were going great. Things were going smooth-ish. I mean, not really, but they were going good enough. Good enough for someone who was living at his parents' house. And, and then my partner at the time got a job offer across the country here in Victoria, and it was just an opportunity for me to be like, hey, I can work from anywhere. I have a skill that I can market to other people in different cities. That doesn't matter to me. Let's go. Let's move. Let's do this thing. It sounds like a really cool, exciting, fun city, which it is, even though I'm in a basement right now, but it is a great city. And it's probably the only place I've lived, well, it's definitely the only place I've lived in Canada that doesn't have winters. And anyone who's from here and says there's a winter here, you're wrong. So I was stoked on the opportunity to come here and to just try to tap into a new market as a portrait photographer. So I moved here, I started building a little bit of connection, start building a little bit of a network, and start tapping into the little different groups of people and industries that I could get into. And then the happened. So it was a nightmare trying to, as you all know, if you guys were shooting back in 5-6 years ago, you would know that, it was quite a nightmare to get 2 people in the room together. I had some portrait photographers out in Toronto, some friends of mine, that were doing like Zoom call, iPad photo shoots. Like they were telling the model like where to put the camera, where to put their phone. And then they were on an iPad, like FaceTiming and being like, yeah, that's the photo. I didn't do any of that. That didn't feel weird. That felt so weird to me. So I didn't do any of that. But I did need to keep shooting just for my own sanity, not even just for the sake of making money, because the amazing Canadian government was like, here, we'll just give you a bunch of money. Which at the time was probably about as much as I was making with photography anyway. So now I was just making that money to not work. So what I was doing, I was just shooting a bunch of street photography. I did a zine in the first few months of just to kind of showcase what the vibe of the city was like. To me, I was still a tourist, so for me it was easy to kind of be like, oh wow, look at this, this city feels very timepiecey, you know, like what was happening right now is only going to happen right now at that moment. So it felt nice to be a street photographer during that moment, even though I wasn't able to create these like super crazy scenes with multiple people in the shots. I was still able to create something that was very unique and very much set in 2020. So that was a cool project that I was able to work on, and it kept me kind of motivated, kept me shooting, kept me doing things that was social distancing appropriate, and allowed me to just keep shooting. I wasn't really making any money. I did try to sell a couple zines, but I didn't really make any money from that. But it did keep my passion for photography alive. And I was shooting some portraits of myself, of my partner, of some of the people that I knew, just like my close friends. But it just wasn't enough. It wasn't like I didn't feel as fulfilled, and it was just a lot. It was a lot to try to find clients when clients didn't even want to be found to begin with. And just being a portrait photographer in general, I feel like you're already convincing people when it's not a lot. So when it came to those years, it was just a nightmare to try to convince people, I guess, to take new pictures with you. So one of the things I did is I looked around my house one day, bored, and I really wanted to shoot. I had all my stuff. I was still working from home, or working with or having all my stuff in the house anyway. So what I did was go through my pantry, and I had a bunch of sweet, sugary snacks and delicious food and things that I grew up with, and comfort food that I grew up with, and things like that. And I just started taking pictures of those. And I started taking pictures of, like, if you look at a sweet or a candy or anything like that, there's no styling that needs to be involved. So you can kind of just take a candy and take a picture of the candy really, really accurately or really precisely, or do all kinds of complex lighting to a certain piece of candy, and it's going to look pretty much as good as if Maynard's did it, because the candy itself is not going to change. If you're doing a burger, you need to style that burger and you need to make it look really good. But candy on the ground, you can just kind of compose it neatly and it's pretty much good enough. So the better you can create the scene, the better your pictures ended up being. And I was just doing more and more of that in my living room, and shooting with, cans and liquids and snacks and things that were like pre-styled, pre-made. And it was easy. It was easy to create these scenes that I was like, oh my goodness, that's great. That's so much fun to do, to kind of like, the model is never late. The model is never complaining. If I make a mistake, I can use a second model that looks identical. You know what I mean? Like, I can do so many things with food and product that I wasn't able to do with models and people. And that was really eye-opening to me. It was cool to be like, wow, there's a world of photography that I can tap into that doesn't deal with people, and that doesn't deal with my general anxiety of dealing with people. And sure, I needed a worldwide for me to be able to realize that, but I still realized it. And in shooting more and more food and more products and little things, and my friend's skincare brand and this, that, and whatever other like little self-employed entrepreneurs that I knew, I was able to take pictures of their little things. And I was realizing like, oh, all these businesses have things that they need advertising for. It's like, there's no selling. It was so much less convincing to tell people that they have a product that they should post on their Instagram to promote it and sell it, rather than trying to tell people that they need a new headshot because their one from 6 months ago with the hair change looks different and it's not appropriate to who they, or whatever it is. Like, there wasn't any of that. It was just like, hey, you have a thing, let me take pictures of your thing. That's that simple. And that was a really like eye-opening moment for me, because I realized that like, there are so many different businesses, and all of them need advertising. All of them need this constant media to attract new customers for them. When I was shooting this pantry stuff, like, my first thought was, I was seeing all of these NFTs at the time, which I never ended up doing anything like that. But I remember the first shot that I did was like a bucket of popcorn with my hand going one way and my partner's hand coming the other way. And I did it kind of like the creation of Adam. picture or the painting. So that was like my original thought, and I was like, all right, let me take this picture, and then I can sell it as an NFT and maybe make a couple $1,000s, and then maybe that's my career as a photographer. Maybe I sell prints digitally or something. I don't know. I was trying new things. I don't know. I was just trying to reinvent myself, and in shooting more and more product, more and more food, I realized how fun this was and how precise you can be, and how much that played with my analytical approach at photography anyway. I love getting to move my flashes, 20 feet this way, or 5 inches this way, or 2 millimeters this way. And to me, that makes a difference in the shot. And it might not to the model, and it might not to whatever like product that I have that I'm shooting, but to me it does. And that makes my workflow more enjoyable. And I can't really do that with models. I can only do it with product and with little tiny things. In shooting more of these tiny things and shooting more of these products, I realize how broad, I guess, you can be with portrait photography. And full circle here, but I shot some portraits a few weeks ago, and I was so amazed with how quote unquote easy it was to light this person. I just thought it was like going from lighting really small cylindrical reflective surfaces to like a full body portrait. You can be a lot more broad with the lighting. And if you've only ever shot portraits, you might be like, no, it's got to be pretty precise to get the Rembrandt and to get the hair light just right and blah, blah, blah. Like, sure, maybe. But when you're dealing with like a glass or a ring or anything that's really small and shows reflections from like basically eyeballs, it's going to get a lot tougher to photograph. Anyway, so that's kind of like my story of why I started my commercial photography game and why it helped me become such a consistent photographer, because there's just so much more advertising need as a product photographer than as a portrait photographer. Thanks for watching, guys. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you found it useful, and I'll see you guys in a couple days. Later.